The military's known about the alien question for the better part of 70 years, and they first saw their glimpse of what was going on as early as 1909 in the American Southwest. From me to this elderly woman here in the front was sitting a 7-foot-tall alien gray. Alien agenda is the complete takeover of this planet by the year 2029. The U.S. military has known about this for 45 years. They've told no one.
This is the story that took me from a curious, bright-eyed teenager interested in aliens and strange lights in the sky, to the stark reality of not only the government's knowledge, but compliance with and cover-up of non-human intelligences not only existing, but interacting with our planet. Phil Schneider was a geologist and engineer who was assigned to black projects where he would use advanced technology to bore out these giant holes underground so the military could begin building their deep underground military bases, also known as DUMBs. And in 1979, after Phil and his team kept encountering problems with their machinery, they decided to go below the surface and take a look at what was going on. And according to Phil, he and a group of others came face to face with a group of tall gray aliens. Now, Dulce is located right on the border of New Mexico and Denver, but when we look at Dulce on a map comparatively to everything else strange that we know about in the area, this picture begins to tell its own story. Phil was a husband and a father, and every speech that he did, he made it clear that there have been multiple and ongoing attempts on his life. He would always emphasize that he loves his life. He does not want it to end, but he loved his country even more. And in 1996, Phil was found dead in his apartment with a medical tube wrapped around his neck. There's been a lot of speculation on Phil's claims over the last 30 years. There's a chance he maybe didn't have all of the little specific details correct, but as more and more information comes out, the things that sounded outlandish and absurd in Phil's 1995 speech are almost commonly accepted in the modern era of ufology. So today we're going to be connecting the dots from Phil's 1995 speech and see where they connect and line up today. And I think this video is going to blow you away because it is really beginning to feel like in 1995, Phil Schneider was telling the truth.
In working with the black projects, I was very loyal. I was picked because I was very strong mentally. There's a bunch of us that were picked because we don't crack under pressure. We don't freak under pressure, so to speak. Everyday events don't bother us. Now, I was involved in something very controversial, almost totally unbelievable to most of you. Some of you are religious people. I think all religions have a time and a place, and they definitely have a place in America. Now, another thing I want to reach to you is that during the unbelievable part, I was involved in building another base inside of Dulce, New Mexico, which is Los Alamos Laboratory. It's a biological laboratory. On the southwest part of the Archuleta Mesa, we built an underground facility, a better part of 3 cubic miles hollowed out underground.
3 cubic miles. I mean, we've all heard about these deep underground military bases, but 3 cubic miles. 3 miles across, 3 miles up, and 3 miles long. That is hard to imagine. That is the size of these things that are being tunneled out underground. And there are apparently hundreds of these things all over the United States. If this is true, which a lot of people say it is, it's almost like there is another civilization, maybe a breakaway civilization, living below us.
Then to the southwest of that, we were in the process of the early stages of building. We drilled 4 large tunnel-like holes. Some of them ran 2.5 miles under the surface. Number of the original wells or drilling machines that were used were the rate of 2 miles a day. It was fairly rapid. The equipment kept coming up broken. So we wanted to go down, we wanted to send somebody down there, a human observer, or human observers in this case, find out what was going on. Well, to our total surprise, first of all, the government knew all about it. They didn't tell anybody. When I saw Green Beret and Black Beret people encamped inside of our geologist camp, I knew something was up. The gig was up. First of all, I knew all about the alien agenda. I'll explain that in a few minutes. the large alien grays had been encamped there for, as best as believed possible, about 400 or 500 years. It had been one of their internal bases. And we drilled holes right on top of it. All the stinking air, all the black sooty air came right out as soon as the first hole was sunk, and all this soot came up, and well, that's when all the hell broke loose, really, all it started. Anyway, after we drilled all 4 holes, it took about 2 days to drill all 4 of them. And when you build a underground base, you drill 4 basic holes, and then you build called stopes or cross-member holes across, and you use blasting equipment and special blasting equipment by the analyzation of the rock formation, and you literally blast out or tunnel out or deflagrate or melt rock out to build the large rooms that are required for this underground base. Well, in this process, I was lowered down the basket of one of these holes, and about from me to this elderly woman here in the front was sitting a 7-foot-tall alien gray. The stench was worse than the worst garbage can you can imagine.
There's that thing we always hear, that they smell terrible. Almost every case says this.
The person was or the entity was absolutely horrible. I didn't waste any time to reach for my pistol. At that time, I was an engineer. I didn't have time to carry all the folderol of one of these big submachine guns that all the sea spray and the yellow fruit and all the outer perimeter and inner perimeter security people carried. I carried a little Walther PPK pistol with a 9-shot clip. This was in late August of 1979. Now, you got a regular suit of clothes, you got a regular clothes on, plus you're in almost like a spacesuit environment, and you're reaching for a gun. It's not the easiest thing to do, and then to pop a clip in it and start shooting. And I killed 2 of them. Yes, they're mortal, and they do die. However, in the process, one of them did this. All I remember is that he just kind of waved his hand in front of his chest, and the next thing I know, this blue beam hit me and just literally opened me up like a fish, and burnt my fingers right off of me. And it was some form of electrical force because
If you guys haven't noticed yet, he just said he'd burn his fingers off. Look at the fingers on his left hand. The index and middle finger are basically like melted down to a stub.
Kind of like it being hit by a lightning bolt, burned all my toenails off of me. Completely crispy crittered my left foot. Burnt the shoe right off of me. All I remember is the smoking remains, and I'm still conscious, but in and out of, I didn't remember much. And there was a Green Beret that was right behind me, risked his life. In fact, he died. But he risked his life. He shoved me back in the basket and hit the button and took me up. I wouldn't be alive talking to you today if it wasn't for him. I'm forever indebted. He lost his life. 66 Secret Service agents, Green Berets, Black Berets, crack troops lost their lives because the government, our United States government, lied, did not tell us anything about the alien threat. There's a war underneath there, and I'm talking dead serious. It's been going on since that time. Since late August of 1979, our military, the Russian military, basically the militaries of the world, have been in constant conflict with the outer space alien. The small gray, the large gray, the reptilian, the whole thing.
This is in 1979. Now, to me, what's interesting is how that kind of lines up with the Cold War, right? Because obviously the Russians, they get talked about in the Immaculate Constellation documents. The Cold War was with the Russians, but the Cold War is a weird one because it's a war that kind of never really happened. Why is that? Why did that war never happen? And is it because both countries around the same time began to realize that there is something else here, something else that's interacting with us, maybe manipulating us, and that is where the attention really needs to be? That's just a theory. I don't know, but I think the timeline here is very interesting.
I'm going to casually mention to you something that's very scary indeed, and tell you what the alien agenda is. It's going to sound very familiar. The alien agenda is the complete takeover of this planet, the killing off of 5, 6 to 7/8 of the world's population by the year 2029.
I mean, it's 2 years off 2027, but, you know, when we did our 2027 video, we looked at the Georgia Guidestones. Those Guidestones were erected around the time that this alien battle allegedly happened. And those Guidestones, remember, those Guidestones were written in 12 languages, including Sanskrit, Egyptian hieroglyphs, lots of ancient Mesopotamian languages. And the first thing is that the Earth should have less than 500 million people on it.
U.S. military has known about this for 45 years. They've told no one. As far as I know, I'm the only person standing before a crowd talking about the alien agenda, secretively. Okay. Back in 1954, I'll give you a quick overview. There was a created 1954 treaty where Eisenhower signed a pact with the known alien species of the time. There were 3 at the time. And said that we're going to deal in high technology, but you can take a few head of cattle and a few human beings and you can experiment on them. It's unthinkable. It's stuff straight out of the Nazi death camps. And I'm kidding you not, it's plain BS.
Now, 2 things that are interesting there. Obviously, he's talking about Eisenhower, who is the president that seems to be the recurring theme when it comes to an agreement with a non-human intelligence in exchange for technology and abductions and things like that. Could he possibly just be recycling things that we've already heard? Maybe, but remember, this is in 1995 that he's saying this. And this thing allegedly happened in 1979 as well. Like, it's easy to confuse the fact that he might just be recycling things that we hear regularly, but forget the fact that this is so long ago. This is 30 years ago. And the other interesting part on the Nazis is Phil Schneider's dad, Oscar Schneider, was a U-boat captain for the Nazis and came to America through Operation Paperclip. So that's interesting in itself. But what's also interesting, and like, you know, just think about this. If you watch the live stream we did today about, you know, the tall blonde Nordics potentially controlling society, just consider that. Maybe go watch that if you haven't yet. Consider that. And then think about how a person, a U-boat captain who was brought to the America under Operation Paperclip, his son was trusted enough and given access to be in the most deepest secretive black projects going at the time. Building the deep underground military bases was the son of a Nazi. I don't have a concrete idea of what that means, but I don't think that fact should be understated or forgotten about.
The created 1954 treaty would have been violated. After the great firefight, the alien-human war, I am the only living survivor talking about it worldwide at all. Only one. The other 2 are in nursing homes in Canada, and the Canadian government refuses to allow any U.S. people, including myself, to talk to them because they are afraid of kidnapping. Probably the reason I got shot to pieces and 11 attempts on my life is I am a direct threat to the entire system. The New World Order, the alien agenda is one and the same. It's world takeover and the decimation of the population of this planet. Now, I'm going to tell you something a little bit different about the alien species. The bad news ones, there are 9 races of alien populations. So look at a human being as a bag of food. They're not cannibals. They don't eat the flesh and the bones and all that kind of stuff. They use the glandular secretions of animals and human beings as a mixture of the vitamins for their food. They get high off of our adrenal gland substances called adrenochrome. It's something like cocaine to them.
Okay, so there you have Phil Schneider saying the word adrenochrome, which is deep down the rabbit hole stuff. Now, again, this is 1995. I'm not going to pretend like I know what the origins of the adrenochrome conspiracy theory are, but I certainly can't give you an example of anyone talking about it before 1995. Maybe someone in the comments can let us know. But, and you know, that's one thing that is really clouded in like proper tinfoil. Like you talk about that, like that's too far. That's over the imaginary line of crazy that somehow people have drawn and what's socially accepted. But what's interesting about this is what is kind of accepted, and this has come out through people like Tom DeLonge and others, is that they feed on our fear and on our negativity, right? We've been told that. And that's why the world is in a constant state of conflict. Maybe that's why the mainstream media, which seems to be controlled by big corporations, constantly plays things that puts your mind in like this subconscious state of anxiety. Well, what if that is because through your adrenal glands or through whatever substance that is consumed when you are in that state of anxiety, fear, living a life that is full of worry, whatever it is that Phil Schneider is talking about here is heightened and it makes the product better or sweeter. I don't know. I'm just throwing around theories here, but it makes sense to me.
Back in 1946, we set off a number, actually 4 atomic bomb tests at Bikini Atoll. It's a group of islands in the South Pacific. I have an original photograph here with original language on the photograph that shows there is a large alien spaceship off a wingtip of a United States aircraft. It was a drone aircraft right at the point where the bomb was beginning to show a neutron flash cloud. Here's the bomb going off. Here's the airplane tip here, and here is the alien spacecraft. In 1947, questions later, please. In 1947, after Roswell debacle, our military got before the U.S. Senate. They were hauled before the U.S. Senate and says, what's going on here? Well, we didn't know anything about discs until this happened. It plopped in our backyard. Total lie. They lied to the U.S. Senate. They should have been prosecuted as traitors. Anybody lying to a United States Senator or House of Representative, any senator or House of Representative, person, President of the United States, Vice President, any cabinet member lying to the American public is a traitor and should be dealt with in an appropriate fashion.
Sean Kirkpatrick.
This is actual proof, positive, that this occurred in 1946. Now, U.S. military knew all about flying discs, and flying disc technology is early, thoroughly early, as 1933. Of course, we remember the Germans did too, the Nazi Germans, Hitler and all their bunch of people.
1933. It's an interesting date, isn't it? Phil Schneider, son of Nazi U-boat captain, saying the Germans also knew about the sources as early as 1933. He is referring to the Magenta Italy crash. He must be. He must be. And we didn't know about this until like a year or two ago. And he is saying specifically the Germans. And we know that when the Italians found that craft, they went to the Germans and said, is this one of yours? Because it ain't ours. So you can already see little tidbits starting to line up with how we look at this thing today. And remember, when Phil was out saying this stuff in 1995, he was getting laughed out the door. Okay, this stuff didn't even get taken seriously for another 20 years. Phil was long dead before anyone started to take what he is saying seriously. And now here we are 30 years later, and so much of this seems to be what is actually going on.
Groom Lake is where the infamous Area 51, S4, S2, a CIA base, it was originally a bombing range, a nuclear test site. It was later become the most secret base in the United States. It employs over 18,000 workers who work in shifts of 12 hours at a whack. Most of them work in the cover of darkness, like us. We built 9 underground military bases there, each with an average capacity capable of basically a city underground, roughly 4.25 cubic miles hollowed out underground. That boring machines, for instance, they don't bore. They literally vitrify and melt the rock, deflagrate the rock. It's a very sophisticated laser melting and deflagrating system. Reduce the rock to a powder and then melts the remaining rock as a coating on the inside of the base, so you don't have to use gunite cements and other kinds of things like that. That's all old hat now. Technology is just basically the new technology we get is the old hat of the military. I want to be real brief about it. I carried a level 1 security clearance, the Rhyolite 38 Factor. There are very few of us. There's nobody except myself, to my knowledge, talking like this. Nobody. I'm breaking the law. I'm breaking world as well as federal law, coming out and even talking about this to a group of people. I love my country more than I love my life. 2 weeks ago, I was shot in the shoulder. I don't want to gore you women out, but I was shot in the shoulder up here. I recently have become friends of a retired FBI agent who took me under the wing. He says, I've never seen a person braver than you. And I said, well, there's more coming. Our patriot movement in these United States is going to pick up the ball, and we are going to kick the parasites out.
I feel like Phil would probably be a little upset if he saw how things had turned out 30 years later. We're talking about it more, but I think the parasites have not been kicked out. In fact, they've probably multiplied.
Area 51 is only one base, one of the 131 bases. Of these 131 bases, I call Area 51 a mega base. It's got more than one base in it. Stonopah Test Range, Area 51, S2, S4, Groom Lake, and a host of others. These mega bases are gobbling up our gross national product. Right now, we're spending 28% of the gross national product on building underground bases solely. That doesn't count for the defense budget. That doesn't count for the spare parts budget. Doesn't count for any of that at all. And the black budget is dead wrong. It sidesteps the United States Congress and its Constitution of its people and says you're a bunch of morons you don't need to know. Well, a need-to-know basis is an executive order written during the Eisenhower era right after the Greada 1954 treaty and is treasonous and illegal in this country and should be overturned and abolished. Now, I believe in military preparedness. I believe in military secrecy to some extent, because there's always going to be spies out there, and there are always going to be people that want your hunk of territory, your house, or your ground, maybe even a country like that. Yeah. Most of us remember what this crazy person in Russia, Zhirinovsky, had to say. We want Alaska back. Well, baby, you're not going to get Alaska back without a horrendous fight.
The interesting part there to me is the depth that he's talking about the black budget, the amount of money that's being spent on these deep underground military bases. And it was only about a month ago where Catherine Fitz was on the Tucker Carlson show, and she was telling us the exact same thing about how this budget was being siphoned off to fund a breakaway civilization, which seems to be being built underground, and that all of these bases that are littered across America, hundreds of them, are all connected via trains and tunnel networks.
Between fiscal 1998 and fiscal 2015, there were 21 trillion of undocumentable adjustments in the U.S. government. If you go to our website, missingmoney.solera.com, we have years and years of documentation, including the government financials that show this. And so the question is, where's all this money going? And one of the things I've looked at in the process of looking at where all this money is going is the underground base and city infrastructure and transportation system that's been built. And
I'm sorry?
Yes. So we have built an extraordinary number of underground bases and supposedly transportation systems. Some of these are some of these are documented as part of the national security infrastructure. I think there are many more. So,
in the United States?
In the United States, on all over the world.
And what would be the purpose?
The purpose, if you thought you were going to get a near extinction event, so there, to me, there are two purposes. You have so many activities going on that you need to keep secret, that you're basically building the capacity to, for example, if you're doing a secret space program, you need to platform it from, things that can't be seen.
Now, the deep underground bases are one thing. We all kind of know about DUMBs. They're probably the biggest, worst kept secret. But what's really interesting is when Phil starts to talk about the technology. Remember, he's a geologist. He understands this stuff on a really lower micromolecular level. And he's saying that the material in the SR-71 Blackbirds and even some submarines came from another world.
Up here I have different artifacts explaining some of them are alien metals that have been produced both on this planet and the confines of outer space that are now used in all stealth aircraft. All stealth aircraft, for instance, all black jets, what you're seeing of black helicopters and the like, the skins and the coatings and the residues that are used predominantly in the aircraft themselves, in the airframes and the rotor blades and the fans, and in some cases in submarines, special titanium hulls, Phoenix-class submarines now. All this has come from alien technology.
Okay, and this is a part that really kind of blew my mind. Okay, we've done a lot of 4chan read-throughs recently, and a lot of them are to do with this mobile construction unit in the ocean, right? That seems to be operated on some kind of AI. And the story is that it recycles these UFOs and repurposes them for whatever it needs. They are single-use machines. And the theory is that things that get too close to it, that have this alien material that this construction unit facility recognizes as its own, basically just gets pulled in and recycled, right? Well, he's saying here that there have been submarines fitted with this exotic black material. It's also on the outside of the SR-71 Blackbird, but also on submarines. And we did that 4chan read-through of the Lockheed Martin attack submarine. So a submarine that Lockheed Martin had adapted. It's not clear what they did to it, but we know Lockheed Martin are heavily involved with reverse engineering programs, and they had manipulated this submarine that just vanished when it approached this thing. And this is the story from someone on 4chan, and this submarine was part of a fleet with the USS Hampton. If you haven't seen that video, go and check that out. I'll leave a link to it below, but it really makes what Phil Schneider is saying here extremely eerie.
1947 is what the public has been told. Something crashed in the backyard in New Mexico, a place called Roswell, New Mexico. Unfortunately, that's what the public's been told. The military's known about the alien question for the better part of 70 years, and they first saw their glimpse of what was going on as early as 1909 in the American Southwest. Now, Army cavalry evidently were chasing some bandits, and they entered this cave. They were holed up in a cave, and what they found in there was flying discs and little gray guys and all kinds of weird things, and they didn't know how to explain that, and they wrote them down as best they could, and it's been in secret archives ever since.
1909. He's saying that happened in 1909 in the American Southwest. Again, look at that map. Look how much strangeness seems to happen on this map. And it's only a couple of years later is the famous G.E. Kincaid story of the area in the Grand Canyon that, by the way, is named entirely after ancient Egypt. There is the Tower of Ra, the Temple of Set, Horus, all of these Egyptian names are there. It's entirely prohibited. You cannot go there. You cannot even fly over there. But in there was allegedly cave systems, places for rituals, Egyptian hieroglyphics, and this is all in the American Southwest.
The alien thing is more than just what I'd call a non-visible threat. We on the surface, first of all information dealing with alien or alien reproduced technology or alien reproduced vehicles or any other kinds of things well hidden from the American public. Our black budget, for instance, garners $1.023 trillion every 2 years. It's over $500 billion a year. Right now, there are 131 active deep underground military bases in the United States. There's 1,477 of them worldwide. Each one has an average cost of $17 to $19 billion. Each one is built in the site. It used to be, it would take a year to 2 years to build each one, and now they're capable of building a couple of them a year with sophisticated methods. My colleague Al Bielik has actually been on some of the high-speed railways, the magneto-leviton trains that connect all the deep underground military bases within the United States. He's been on a Mach 2 train and floats off of a single rail at a 3/4 of an inch off the rail, and is what you'd call high tech. We have nothing like this on the surface.
He's talking about maglev trains in 1995. Back then, this stuff would have sounded pretty much like science fiction. I mean, it's crazy to hear this. And now today, I mean, even still, America doesn't have a maglev train on the surface. Neither does Australia. I think Japan are like in the process of building one. And there's ideas of America making one on their surface, but still nothing. But what's interesting is that what would have sounded probably like science fiction in 1995 is commonly accepted and known science today.
The public basically has been totally lied to. We're considered stupid or even moronic in some cases. It's got to stop. If we're going to gain our country back, we must, and I repeat, must we must instill in our public officials, anybody that goes and does public service, they must tell us the truth. If they cannot do this, then they must be impeached, or they must be removed from office. If this cannot occur, if the truth cannot totally come out, there are reasons for secrecy, for instance, but if the truth cannot totally come out, what's the use in us having anything called freedom? I have actual crashed retriever metal from Roswell, New Mexico. It's given to me when I was 14 years old. For instance, I've got other things. I've got...
Just note that it was given to him when he was 14 years old, crash pieces from Roswell. Again, I did say his dad came over in Operation Paperclip, automatically would have been put into very high places. And at 14 years old, I can't think of many high-level military people who would just give a random 14-year-old a piece from Roswell. I mean, I can only speculate that this might have come from his father or through his father somehow. The connection to the Germans who came in Operation Paperclip and this off-world technology is obvious.
This piece of titanium, a special titanium alloy made for everything from the original SR-71 Blackberry, it's old hat now. F-117A is their old hat now. They're making a whole new class of hypersonic above Mach 5 aircraft that employ extremely modern charged particle beam weapons. They don't even use lasers anymore. Computer-enhanced imaging radar, although it's used in helicopters for public surveillance, computer-enhanced imaging radar, and in satellite technology. The brand new kid on the block is a kind of infrared technology where a satellite 150,000 miles out in a geosynchronous orbit, or not quite geosynchronous orbit, but these spy satellites can literally look in and see a dime on the floor, let's say on your kitchen floor.
Again, I know I keep saying it, 1995, he's talking about satellites in geospatial orbit that can see a dime on the kitchen floor in 1995. But we just can't work out what happened to MH370. I wonder why that is.
They have a resolution factor 99.999961. This particular piece of metal, I'm going to drop it on the floor here. It'll kind of ring like a bell. You can't break it. Withstand temperatures in excess of 7,500 degrees Fahrenheit. It has niobium in it. It also has mironite in it, element 123. It's in a non-crystalline form. This is just kind of a dripping out of the main crucible. Here's a crystalline example. It's in the scalenohedral crystalline form. We got this from the large grays technology. This is grown in the confines of outer space, which has not quite a super vacuum, but by the way, this is capable of withstanding temperatures in excess of 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's great for certain parts of aircraft. This kind of material I work with on a daily basis.
So what's interesting there as well is he's saying this metal has been made in the vacuum of space. Now, look, I'm not a metallurgist. I don't profess to fully understand this stuff on like a technical level, but I'm not trying to, okay? I just need to understand it enough that I can relay it to us general normal people, okay? And what's interesting is that from people like Gary Nolan, who does study this stuff at like the molecular level, these are the things that he says is that the way that the atoms of these off-world materials are structured are like layer by layer meticulously placed. The example that I always use is it's like you could fill a bucket by just dumping a whole bag of sand into it, or you could go in and stack each grain of sand one by one. That's how these materials are made when they are looked at through a microscope. And that's only achievable in a vacuum, when there's zero gravity in the vacuum of space, like Phil Schneider has just said. Now, a lot of this stuff is compelling so far. There are a lot of dots that we can connect, and a lot of stuff does add up. But this next clip is where it starts to enter the realm of people really struggling to grasp what Phil says. But I want you guys to remember, a lot of the things that seemed crazy to us 30 years ago were not so crazy 10 years later. A lot of the stuff that were crazy to us 20 years ago or 30 years ago in this speech, kind of like commonly accepted now. So think about the trajectory of things, where we're headed, what we're learning, where we're going, and then maybe consider what you see and what you hear in this next clip.
I have a picture of one of the aliens been working for the United States Pentagon for the last 58 years. His name is Valiant 4. He's right here. There's my father in the background. This old place, the ready room of the USS Eldridge, Al Bielek has probably explained, or maybe even shown you this picture. There's a list of some of the notable people in it. They're all the atomic bomb scientists of the day, all the time variant experimentalists of the day, all the top physicists of that particular day. This was in August of 1943. Now, this guy has not changed one iota in 58 years. Started work, he came here, crashed here, or whatever. Whether he's under duress or not, he started work for our U.S. Navy and military operations in 1937, either 37 or 38 is what I've been told.
Okay, guys, like I said, this is where it gets crazy, okay? If this photo is actually real, and what you can see there in the red circle is this alien called Valiant Thor, which looks like a Nordic, chiseled jaw, blonde hair, big, beautiful human, sitting next to Phil Schneider's dad, who, again, remember, is a German working alongside a Nordic alien. But this is where it kind of doesn't make sense, is that he said this photo was taken in 1943. Well, this is on the USS Eldridge, which is famous for the Philadelphia experiment, and that's its own whole conspiracy about a ship disappearing, and that's another video. Operation Paperclip didn't start until 1945, and this is allegedly a German U-boat captain aboard a United States naval ship next to a Nordic alien. I don't know what to make of this. I'm not sure if there are details there that perhaps falsify these claims, or maybe even, like Phil Schneider has said, history is wrong. There are things in history, in the history books, that aren't actually true. Matthew Brown even says this as well.
But anyway, he basically hasn't changed. He lives for 490 years, is what he says his lifespan is. Now, he's supposedly a semi-benevolent, he's a human-looking type person. He has 6 fingers and 6 toes, and he's got one oversized heart, one lung, giant lung. His blood vessels are bigger. He's got copper oxide for blood, similar to an octopus. His brain capacity, 300 centimeters greater than ours. He has a thinking capacity, IQ, if you were to measure, it'd be totally off the scale, be about a 1200 IQ. He speaks 100 languages fluently, alien as well as others. He's a remarkable person. I had a chance to meet him one time.
And that's where people really struggle with Phil Schneider's story. And I get it. I totally get it. You know, it's especially the 6 fingers and 6 toes thing. Strangely enough, that's the detail that really gets me. But, you know, I mean, an octopus has 8 tentacles. I mean, who knows? With all the stuff we looked at in this morning's live stream, where we looked at these tall whites, these Nordic beings that have been idolized throughout history as being a higher intelligence, as having slightly bigger heads, like Phil Schneider alluded to there. I don't know. Everything else, all the other things that he said that make a lot of sense today, I feel like this is the part that we're going to struggle with today, but this might be the part that, just like the rest of it, in 10 years, we kind of go, oh yeah, the Nordics, they live here. It's just the way it is now.
By the way, he doesn't shake hands. He was kind of in a spacesuit, because all aliens, regardless benevolent or otherwise, they're carrying germs and diseases and bacterium in and on them that are deadly to us. If I were making policy, I'd quarantine them all, because how do we not know that some of our diseases like AIDS, Ebola, hantavirus, and a few of these other weird designer diseases, as I call them, are not made from the cadavers of some of these aliens as a biological weapon to use against the people of the United States? Well, I'm a tired American speaking out. I'm going to sum up this talk and mention an overview of the alien agenda. The alien agenda is completely decimate the planet, to take the remaining human subjects as slaves, and the aliens would use this planet for their own means. Number one, this cannot be allowed to happen. The world takeover plans of the New World Order, a direct carbon copy blueprint from Adolf Hitler's routine of 1933 to 1938, must not be allowed to happen. That includes the name, the New World Order. That was purposely used, folks, because most of us have been lazy. We have not read our history, and I'm talking to you because I'm one of them. We have not read our history books. Things have been omitted. Throw out basically what you've learned. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to re-educate each one of yourselves and ask the unexpected of your public officials, of the people around you, your teachers. I'm not asking you to question authority. I'm asking you to question the teachers of this authority. Is this right? Is this law correct? If a law, one of the best statements to ever come out of the mouth of any human being, believe it or not, Martin Luther King, excuse me, said, an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. That should be a motto that we live by. Not so much for the man who said the motto, but I'm sure George Washington said something similar, who said, an uninformed populace is a populace in slavery.
Phil believes that the alien agenda, what is actually going on beneath the surface, is there is an alien agenda to take over society, take over and enslave humanity, and that is the same as the New World Order. It makes you wonder, because a lot of these top globalists, they always seem to have this weird thing that happens with like their left eye. I don't know what that is, but who knows? Maybe they're somehow integrated with an advanced technology. Maybe they're being maybe it's some kind of like alien style Neuralink that connects them to the alien intelligence or allows the alien intelligence to control them. Who knows? We're getting super tinfoil hatty here. But I don't think you can deny that Phil Schneider was a patriot, maybe a little rough around the edges, but he loved his country. He loved America, and he knew things that he felt like were sending the country down a bad road, a road that took away people's freedoms and took away democracy and took away the American dream. Or that you could even say the dream of all Western society. And when you look at where we are today in 2025, it feels like we have only gotten further down that road. There's so much to consider here. We've heard people like Lou Elizondo say things like, what if the act of disclosure will trigger something that we're not ready for? That we had, let's say we had 50 years to prepare for something and we're not quite ready yet. These are Lou Elizondo's words, right? What if the reason why this stuff is so secret, the reason why there have been psyops performed on America's own people and their own military is because they are trying to steal and reverse engineer this technology to have a chance to actually fight back against them. But if this other intelligence knows what they're doing, knows what they have, then they're essentially showing their hand. And maybe even that will trigger a reaction from them to shut it down. Because I do try to think about what could be so bad that this is kept in secret. To me, the idea that they just want power and control, yes, that's maybe a part of it, but this feels far more deeper than that. This feels like something that's rooted in the survival of our race. That's how deep this is guarded. That letting this secret out before it's ready or in the wrong way could genuinely lead to something catastrophic. I believe in the terrible truth. Many people do. It makes sense. It's weird. It's wild. And that's why we're talking about it. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. This Phil Schneider one was a bit of a special one to me. Like I said, this one is what absolutely sent me down the rabbit hole when I was just a young man. And here we are today sharing it together. I want to know what you guys think. Get in the comments. Do you think Phil's believable? Do you think maybe he's got a few things right, but a few other things feel off to you? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. There are another 3 famous lectures that Phil gave as well. If you'd like to dive into those, let me know that as well. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Thank you for watching all the way. You can become a member of Polarity for $5 a month by joining the members club, or you can support me by buying me a coffee. Both of those links are below. Make sure you join our Discord to continue the conversation as well. And until next time, guys, be good, be kind, get outside, touch grass. The aliens aren't going to hurt you, and I'll see you next time.
Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same